All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome. If you are new here, thank you guys so much for joining me today and waiting for the intro to finish up. Garrett says, Mark Cerny season, let's go. Yeah, we are talking about PlayStation 6 today, maybe a little bit of PS5 Pro, but we have some pretty significant news, I would say, in the realm of next generation PlayStation. Um, yeah, Verco, I saw that. I saw that. Treyarch Call of Duty announced that they're removing skill-based matchmaking. And it's so funny because they're doing all this stuff and it's literally because Battlefield just came out and stomped them, bro. So, you know, it does go to show that competition is important, man. It is important. Call of Duty is making all these changes that they never would have even considered making because they actually have a real threat. You know, they have a competitor that's like will do what they want, you know? So that was kind of shocked. I'm kind of shocked to see that they're actually removing it. We have some Ghost of Yotei numbers. I think we do. Lady Gamer, we did talk about that yesterday. Path tracing mentioned twice in the new Cerny video. We're going to bring the video up in a little while and watch it. Yeah, we're going to go over it. But, you know, a lot of people have questions about what's going on with this new Mark Cerny video. And it is surprising to see that this just came out of nowhere. This is something that, you know, I would have assumed we would get like next year. What does removing skill-based matchmaking do? Well, basically, skill-based matchmaking has been the bane of most Call of Duty's players' existence. Wait, IGN gave Battlefield 6 a 5 out of 10? What the fuck? Yeah, I'm going to have to check that. What? Are you serious? I can't tell if you're joking or not. I mean, it seems like you're not joking. I'm going to have to look into that. That's crazy. That's crazy. Damn. Okay. Yeah, we'll look into that. They're getting that Call of Duty money. Well, skill-based matchmaking basically makes it so that however good you are at the game, it's only going to match you with players that are at a similar skill level. You're not going to get people that are significantly above you or significantly below you. You're going to get people that are within the same proximity of you. And so what people don't like about skill-based matchmaking is it makes it feel like every match is like a stalemate. You know, you're never going to do particularly well. You're never going to do particularly bad. You're always going to kind of stay in the same zone because you're basically fighting clones of yourself, you know? Here goes Luna acting like a maniac. So, you know, people have been wanting them to remove that for years because by removing skill based matchmaking, it gives you a lot more opportunity to run into much lower level skilled players so you can have better games, but also higher skilled players that are going to just, you know, mop the floor with you. And it creates a level of unpredictability with your games. And usually it does reward higher skilled players. Um, so like people who are really, really good at the game, they're not going to keep getting matched with people that are just as good as them. There's a much higher chance they're going to get matched with people who are not as good as them. So they'll probably perform much better round over round. So that's why it's such a big deal that people have been asking for the removal of skill based matchmaking for years. Why do you climb it like that? Like that's why. Okay, like you could just jump, you know? She's like, I'm here. Just don't scratch my posters. Oh, you're saying they gave Battlefield a 5 out of 10. I gotta go look at this, man. There's no way this is real. Let's see. Oh, okay. Okay, so Battlefield 6 single player review. Okay, well that's gonna say, bro, like what's going on? They say it's a staggering spectacle to behold at times and a treat for the ears at others, but when it comes to mission design and an engaging plot, it fails to deliver at all. So it sounds like the campaign, I think Tom Henderson kind of warned this. He said that the campaign for Battlefield 6 is going to be not very good, pretty weak overall. I don't know how many people are buying Battlefield 6 for the campaign. I mean, I'm going to play it, but yeah, that would have been really concerning if the entire package of Battlefield 6. I wonder why they're reviewing it separately though. You know? That's kind of strange. Was it that hard to make a good story? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Battlefield stories, I think, are always kind of like a mixed bag. I think the Bad Company games were known for their characters and their stories. I mean, I know like Battlefield 3 and 4 had a campaign and they were like okay. But yeah, I think even Battlefield Hardline had a campaign that was pretty decent. But generally speaking, I think most people who buy Battlefield, they're buying it for multiplayer. But then you saw the reactions from people when they removed the single player and did multiplayer only with Battlefield 2042. And it seems like they felt like they had to have a single player, to make this a complete package. Yeah, we were just talking about that, Sean, how Call of Duty's. So are you saying that like they completely removed it? Because the way that they did it, I saw them posting about it with the beta. They were like, we're going to have two lobbies, one with skill-based matchmaking, one without. Are we hearing that they completely removed it? Because that's crazy. That's actually insane if they completely removed it. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 will have non-disbanding lobbies at launch. Battlefield 6 players on PlayStation earn more XP than on Xbox and PC. Nice. Nice. What's up, boss? So it looks like right now Battlefield 6 is at an 83 on Metacritic and 85 on OpenCritic. Not bad. Yeah, I'm hyped for Battlefield. I really enjoyed the beta. They folded. Dude, I was just saying, like, for them to ditch skill-based matchmaking after all these years out of nowhere. So I mean, they got to be nervous. Something's got to be going wrong behind the scenes, man, because that's crazy. I've been following Call of Duty for years. I've never seen them fold like this, man. This is crazy. This must have done some real damage to their bottom line potentially. Yeah, I played some more Yote. I am making progress in the story. It's difficult for me to talk about because I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I came across at least one plot twist that I wasn't expecting. It wasn't like shocking, but it was like, oh, that's surprising. I did not expect that. And it made me even more curious about, oh, okay, like let's see how this plays out then. But yeah, I don't want to like get into spoiler territory or anything. Irvin, it's probably the one you're thinking of. Yeah. All right. Guys, don't spoil anything. No spoilers, all right? Spoiler free zone. You've been playing Baby Steps? It's a fun game. I heard that game is rage inducing. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Obvious the call outs at the cat cafe is going to be a big selling point. Well, all right, guys, let's get into this new information about the PlayStation 6 Mark Cerny. If you haven't played Getting Over It or Jump King, you should if you want rage inducing. I've heard of those games. All right, come on, boss. Let's get down. All right, so we're going to bring this video up Oh, I didn't notice that Luna's actually just laying on the cat tower. Nice. She never does that. Give me 1 second here. Let me get this set up. Okay. All right, so let's watch this video and break it down a little bit. This is from the PlayStation YouTube channel, and I actually have to pull out my chat here. Hold on. It's from the PlayStation YouTube channel. They just uploaded it today randomly. It's titled "From Project Amethyst to the Future: Play AMD and Sony Interactive Entertainment's Shared Vision."
My good friend, Mark Cerny. Mark, thank you so much. We've been working on some seriously cool gaming tech with Sony, and I couldn't think of a better person to walk us through it than my good friend, Mark Cerny. Mark, thank you so much for coming out to Austin.
My pleasure.
I've asked Mark to join me to pop open the box and give you a peek at some of the gaming breakthroughs we've been working on together behind the scenes.
Yes, we've been busy, that's for sure. So today it seemed like it might be fun to share a bit about the brand new technologies being developed, starting with our collaboration under Project Amethyst to create the machine learning technologies of the future.
As every gamer knows, it takes a complex set of system expertise to get your setup and games to deliver the highest possible experience. As we progress together, the future brings us to real-time physics, cinematic lighting, efficient asset streaming, and keeping everything in sync across a CPU and GPU with super low latency. Trying to brute force that with raw power alone just doesn't scale. That's why we're combining traditional rasterization with neural acceleration.
So I do want to first highlight something that was said here by Jack. I'll just call him Jack because I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He was saying like this is something that can't just be achieved through like sheer brute force. This is, I think, an important thing to pay attention to with what he's saying, because I believe that the main takeaway, or one of the main takeaways from this video that they put out and everything that Mark Cerny says about in regards to the console and everything we've been seeing with the leaks, with the leaked PlayStation 6 Orion APU and the handheld, is that what we're going to see with the next generation of hardware from PlayStation really is not about brute force. It's like the exact opposite in some regards. Like it will be more powerful, obviously, in terms of just raw power, but so much of what's going to be discussed here has to do with, you know, embracing different technologies and how those different technologies are going to allow for certain things to happen on a hardware level that, simply put, just putting like a bigger GPU or just more, you know, like I'll put it to you this way. If back when the PS5 and the Series X were being revealed, if the statement that Mark Cerny said was true, that teraflops is not the best unit of measurement, if that was true then, it's even truer now. It's like it doesn't even matter at this point. We're reaching a point where on paper specs, you know, because of these technologies and how they're going to be implemented, on paper specs will not tell the whole story. And that's just important to keep in mind, because I've already been seeing some people reacting to this, assuming this means we're going to be getting some kind of very weak, underpowered PlayStation 6. And I'm like, I don't think everybody quite understands like what Sony is looking to achieve, what Mark Cerny, I should say, and AMD are looking to achieve with this hardware. But just keep in mind that he said that.
And machine learning isn't just a neat trick anymore. It's become a real tool for developers. Smarter pipelines, cleaner visuals, smoother gameplay, and more headroom to create the worlds we want to all get lost in. And that's what FSR is all about. FSR and PSR actually come from deep co-engineering between Sony and AMD, co-engineering the neural networks that power both technologies. And going forward, more and more what you see on screen, the detail, the fidelity, the atmosphere, it will be touched or enhanced by ML. And that means we're not just hitting new technical benchmarks, we're getting closer to the vision of the artists and creators behind the games.
And the challenge comes in how we implement these systems. The neural networks found in technologies like FSR and PSSR are incredibly demanding on the GPU. They're both computationally expensive and require speedy access to large amounts of memory. The nature of the GPU fights us here. It's made up of a large number of compute units, and problems are therefore typically broken up into bite-sized pieces to enable the individual compute units to tackle them. And there's a downside to that. Subdividing a problem can cause inefficiency, or even force us to give up and find a different approach.
Exactly. And that challenge got us thinking, and what came out of it is something we're calling neural arrays. Here's the idea. Instead of having a bunch of compute units all working on their own, we built a way for them to team up, to actually share data and process things together like a single focused AI engine. Now, we're not linking the entire GPU into one mega unit. That'll be a cable management nightmare. But we are connecting CUs with each shader engine in a smart, efficient way. And that changes the game for neural rendering. Bigger ML models, less overhead, more efficiency, and way more scalability as workloads grow.
Neural
So yeah, this for those who don't, because I mean, it's very technical. For those who aren't fully aware, what they're basically talking about here, yeah, they're talking about machine learning, and they're also talking about, as he said at the end, scalability, and how what they're doing by kind of combining the compute units. They're using words like efficiency. They're using words like greater fidelity. And he mentioned how as workloads grow, as workloads become greater, this is like the big challenge of the console itself. Of course, when it comes to PC components, and even with a lot of what AMD does, but just talking about the PC market in general, the PC market it's obviously very much involved with AI and upscaling as well, but it is easier to some extent for people, if they're like building PCs, to dump more money into it for overall brute force raw power on top of all these technologies as well. But what I find interesting about what they're saying here, specifically about combining the neural arrays as they're describing them, is I have to wonder how much of a game changer it's going to be for the PlayStation 6 in particular and its price point. That's the main thing I'm focused on, because what I'm taking away from this is that these neural arrays are going to be inside of the PlayStation 6. Mark Cerny kind of says that at the end. And, I think it's like when we see the leaked specifications of Project Orion, which is the home PlayStation 6 console. I forget how many compute units they said were going to be in it, like 52, I think, something along those lines. And some people were thinking like, oh, is that actually going to be enough? Like, is this really going to be powerful enough? But this is like a big factor that we didn't know when looking at those leaked specifications. Like, we didn't know that they're going to have neural arrays built into the GPU. And that is kind of like a next gen feature, I guess you could say, that should, if it works out, Mark Cerny, again, he emphasizes later in this video that we got to see how it's going to work out. It should make things more efficient. Everything that they're saying here, these are the results that you should expect. But the idea is you don't have to make the GPU that much bigger and that much more powerful to get these results. That's how I'm interpreting this from the console perspective. Like, I think one of the reasons why Mark Cerny is helping AMD and they're collaborating so intensely here is because I think Mark Cerny has the very, very difficult challenge of he has to create a next gen piece of hardware for Sony that's not going to break the bank. He has to create something that's going to bring meaningful, or what people perceive to be meaningful improvements that make them go, you know what, this is a lot better in one way or another than the PS5. Without being like, well, it's also going to be $900. That's kind of the big thing here that I just want people to kind of pay attention to when they're describing this stuff, and why they're so um, why when they're describing this, they're using these terms. They're talking about efficiency, they're talking about overhead, they're talking about overall like bandwidth, and yeah, it's really interesting, man. I Again, this is all under Project Amethyst, and um keep in mind, well, I'll save it for later. We got to make progress with this video here.
Grow.
Neural arrays will allow us to process a large chunk of the screen in one go, and the efficiencies that come from that are going to be a game changer as we begin to develop the next generation of upscaling and denoising technologies together.
With neural arrays, we're unlocking a whole new level of performance for ML, not just faster, but more capable. That means better FSR, better ray regeneration, and brand new ML power features we're just starting to imagine, all working in real time right on the GPU. And we're just getting started. As we look ahead, you also see dedicated innovations that bring cinematic rendering to an entirely new level.
Another area we've been focusing on has been ray tracing. When I look at its
So yeah, before he goes over the ray tracing stuff, just to kind of summarize, yeah, we're talking about, like, he didn't, Mark Cerny didn't say it, but what AMD is saying here, he did mention FSR. Now, we know that the PS5 Pro is getting a big update in 2026, and from everything Mark Cerny has said, this PSSR update that we're going to get for the Pro is going to be, as he put it, the full fat version of FSR4. So it's not going to be called FSR4. It's basically just going to be FSR4 under Sony's own branding of PSSR for the console, essentially. But according to what Mark Cerny said, it's going to be the full thing. The reason why I think that's significant is because I think when you hear AMD talking about this, talking about the level of innovation there, or breakthroughs, I guess you could say, they're having with machine learning and upscaling technology. I mean, this to me is what I think is going to end up being PSSR for the PS6. Like whatever results we see with these neural arrays, which I'm thinking maybe like FSR 5 at some point, and even what we get with this FSR 4-esque PSS, I know I'm like throwing these words around, but PSSR update next year, it's interesting to think that whatever's going to be there on the PS6 is going to be well beyond that, like significantly beyond that. It's going to be really interesting, man. It really, I don't know. I mean, it is just talk right now, but I do wonder.
Hey at MBG, I am a computer scientist. My understanding is Mark and AMD figure how to micro compression or even lower compressions with making the chips big.
Yeah, that's a part of it too. I think they do talk about this a little bit, Perfect Image, a little bit later on. They talk about at least data compression of some kind in terms of the chips, the size of the chips. I mean, I think the Project Orion leak, again, which is the home PS6 console, they said it's gonna be like 3 nanometer node, I believe. Universal compression, is that what they're calling it? I mean, look, I'm trying my best to keep my understanding, so have a decent understanding of what's going on and what's being said here. But I'm always trying to look at this from the perspective of like, what does this mean for the console side of it? Because AMD is obviously, they're more PC oriented. Well, in a sense, they're like divvied up because they're producing the parts for the PS5. But you get what I'm saying. Like, Mark Cerny's job here is to take what AMD has and try to put some level of, if not his own spin on it, how to make it work in a console form factor. with it, without breaking the bank. That's why I find I'm telling you, man, I am so intrigued to see how the PS6 turns out in terms of pricing, and not even like, I don't even think I care too much about the on paper specs anymore, to be honest. Like, the on paper specs look fine for the PS6. They don't look crazy. They're not like, holy shit, this thing's a fucking monster. Like, it looks exactly in line with what you would expect, where it's like, yeah, that looks like I guess what you would assume a PS6 to look like, but it's nothing too overwhelming. It's enough to make somebody question, like, what differences am I actually going to see here? That's why I find this conversation so interesting, because I think it's the tech that they're talking about now that, like, when Sony comes out to reveal, here's a game running on the PS6, it's going to be using all of these technologies. And what you're seeing is not all through just sheer brute force, like, we have the most compute units, we have the most teraflops and all these things. Like, I just don't think these things are going to matter anymore, as much as here's what our new upscaling technology is able to do. We can run this game at an internal resolution of like 540p, and it's going to look like native 4K, and that's going to allow you to run a game at like 144 or 120 frames per second or some shit like that. Where it's going to allow you to use path tracing. Like, these are the kind of results that, it's all dependent on the developer, of course. This is the dream, so to speak, but it's all dependent on the developers. But this seems to be kind of the direction we're going in. So you were wearing my underwear, says IGN, Battlefield 6 single player 5 out of 10. Saudis won't be happy. Well, we got to wait and see what they give the multiplayer review. If they give the multiplayer 5 out of 10, yeah, there's going to be a problem. All right, let me back this up a little bit.
Another area we've been focusing on has been ray tracing. When I look at its broad usage on PlayStation 5 for reflections, shadows, and global illumination, it's difficult to believe that it's been just 5 years since ray tracing was introduced.
Definitely, Mark. And now with path tracing becoming more central to real-time graphics, the demands on GPU just continue to grow. That's why we've been pushing hard to go beyond the current approach to help developers bring even more realism and cinematic lighting into their games.
But the challenge is that the current approach has reached its limit. To perform ray tracing today, a shader program has to juggle two very different responsibilities. One is ray traversal, digging through complex data structures to locate where the millions of rays being cast hit the millions of triangles in the scene geometry. When there are intersections, that same shader program has to also be doing its usual work of shading the scene, using texture and lighting information and the like.
And we spent the past 2 years rethinking the entire path tracing pipeline from hardware to software. Earlier this year at Computex, we introduced neural radiance caching, a key part of FSR Redstone. Now, we're building on that with Radiance Cores, a new dedicated hardware block designed for unified light transport. It handles ray tracing and path tracing in real time, pushing line performance to the whole new level. Together, these form a brand new rendering approach for AMD. Radiance Cores takes full control of ray transversal, one of the most compute-heavy parts of the process. And that frees up the CPU for geometry and simulation, and lets the GPU focus on what it does best, shading and lighting. The result? A cleaner, faster, and more efficient pipeline built for the next generation of ray trace games.
There's a significant speed boost that comes from putting the traversal logic in hardware, and a further boost that comes from having that hardware operate independently from the shader cores. On top of those performance increases, there's other features in the works too, such as flexible and efficient data structures for the geometry being ray traced. Overall, I'm really looking forward to the time when we can get Radiance Cores into the hands of game creators.
And we're
So you were wearing my underwear, says Cerny looks like someone who's banned from schools, bro. You know who he looks like? He looks like Dana Carvey. That's like crazy, actually. It's kind of wild. Well, see, this to me is This to me, what they're saying about ray tracing and path tracing, I mean, when we think about how Sony's going to try to sell the PlayStation 6, I have no doubt that lighting is going to be one of the biggest things they lean into. So they leaned into ray tracing at the beginning of the PS5 generation, and it became much less significant over time. And I think one of the reasons is kind of like what they were talking about. Ray tracing is very demanding. It's very demanding. It's taxing. It's expensive, and path tracing is like the real kind of way forward. It seems for, as they put it, cinematic lighting and realism in gaming. I think lighting is going to be huge for next gen, and it has the potential, I think, to be one of the most transformative aspects of not game design, of course. We're just talking about graphics, but when people see a game revealed on the PS6, like a path traced game, due to these radiance cores that I assume are going to be built into the PS5's or the PS6 GPU, I mean, look, man, when we see The Last of Us Part 2 remaster remake, like for the PS6, and they show off that ray traced oh yeah, they're gonna have Pedro Pascal as a skin for Joel, and Bella Ramsey. But I mean, I'm just kidding. I hope to God that's not actually what we see. Assuming when we see something like Horizon 3, right? Like Horizon 3 is going to be revealed for the PS6 at some point. I imagine that that's when they're going to show some of this stuff off, where it's like, look at the path tracing for Horizon. So you were wearing my underwear. It says, like you said, it's all on the devs. Sony talked about all the positive things the PS5 had the potential to do, but outside of Sony, who really utilized it? That's true, and that's why I wonder if this is why they're talking about it so early. Like, I find this a bit not strange, but unusual, where this is stuff that Sony traditionally would not be talking about until like probably 3 months or something before they reveal the PS6. And the PS6 is still a long ways away from being revealed. And they're out here just kind of talking about it, putting it out here, letting everybody know. And I think part of the reason they're doing this is for the developers. I think that they're putting it out here to kind of let them know, like I'll put it to you this way. If you're a developer that's planning on getting a PS6 dev kit and you want to make games for the PS6, this video is extremely informative. Like, you now have a pretty good idea of some of the things that you may want to consider trying to do or achieve with your game now because of this. At least that's kind of my read on this. I think that might be one of the reasons why they're out here revealing it so early and talking about it so openly. But yeah, I think what's a little bit different this time, though, is some of the dream, I guess you could say, that Mark Cerny was putting out there with the PS5, with the SSD and the speed and the IO throughput. I think we've seen tangible benefits from it, but it didn't necessarily revolutionize game development either, And I don't know that the things that we're seeing here are going to necessarily revolutionize game development. However, I do think the benefits in the long run, like the potential for those benefits, I think is even greater, because my kind of read on this, and this is just speculation on my part. It's practically just guessing. But I almost wonder if, with all this new technology involving AI and machine learning and ray tracing cores, or radiance cores as they're calling them, if this is stuff that developers can actually very easily take advantage of and implement into their games, I think it comes down to the amount of overhead, or the amount of I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll just say what's left over, right? Like the amount of hardware that can still be taken advantage of, that's like, damn, we can get our game running at what seems to be a 4K resolution, or like that's what people are going to see, the internal resolution is so low, and we have these ray tracing cores that are handling the ray tracing for us. What Well, what do we do now? I mean, of course, you always think about, as they say, scalability. We're going to scale up even more. We're going to get even higher frame rates. We're going to get even higher resolutions. But I think the question of like, how can that extra bandwidth that's potentially left over be leveraged to potentially alter certain game design? I mean, if we take something like GTA 6, how far can that be taken? How far can that be taken on a PS5? If we talk about a game like Red Dead Redemption 3 in the future, assuming it won't be a PS5 game, PS6 only game, what type of differences can we see between something like GTA 6 that's developed just for the PS5 versus a game that is now being developed for just the PS6 but is able to take advantage of all these AI features? I don't know. I'm not a game dev. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to guess. Trying to guess over here. And Jake Skew comes in and drops a membership gift for you guys. Jake.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, man. I'm just gonna give Boss his treats now because he's annoying the absolute hell out of me. And I missed a super chat from Makui Ninja. He says assume master lighting that was shown coming to PS6. Makui Ninja, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really sure what you're saying here. Luna, can you get away from there? So you were wearing my underwear. It says only PC and PlayStation to develop for now. Maybe Switch 2 ports also. Yeah, I mean, you talk about something like Fizzant. I mean, assuming that's going to be PS6 only and can take full advantage of all this stuff. I don't know, man. I'm not sure what the future of game design, like I don't know what innovation in AAA game design looks like at this point. I'm not sure, and I think everybody's trying to still figure it out. I think the hope that Mark Cerny had for the PS5 was like if we can kind of free up devs to not have to worry about loading in everything at one time and give them like all this extra potential bandwidth through the use of the speed and the IO throughput, what type of creative game design can they come up with? And I think you've seen some devs try to figure that out, but it's not, I don't think it's as intuitive as maybe Mark Cerny had hoped. And I don't know, to be honest, at this point. I'm not sure what a PS6 game could offer that is so dramatically different compared to a PS5 game, other than like, holy shit, look at that lighting. Now we're reaching levels of photorealism that are like, okay, this is like getting close to the end game. I think about it from a more visual standpoint, and I think that's really kind of where we are, where it's like outside of that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the PlayStation 6 hardware and what this next gen tech could do for game design in something like Horizon 3.
Project
in
Amethyst
something like
equals future
Spider-Man
PlayStation
3.
tech with faster graphics, AI visuals and better lighting. That's what I'm thinking without breaking the bank.
Yeah, I think you're on point there. Perfect Image. That's I do think that most of this, I'm going to be honest, I think it's less focused on game design, from the game design aspect. Like they're saying they're excited to get this in the hands of creators, but I think the big reason for that is because they want to be able to deliver the promise of native 4K, or what looks like native 4K, running at bare minimum 60 frames per second with crazy ass ray/path tracing, and to deliver that in a package that's not like, and you got to pay $1,200. To deliver that in a package that conceivably is $600. Maybe that's too hopeful, but that's kind of my whole idea on this. You're saying these things exist, MBG. Cerny's not breaking ground. Oh, I agree. Well, that's what I find interesting about the approach to the PS6 and how different it is with the PS5. The PS4 was not meant to break any ground. Mark Cerny with the PS4 was focused on delivering a easy to develop for games focused console that's developer friendly, and he knocked it out of the park. The PS5 was a doubling down on that with a slight added with a splash of potential game innovation through the speed of the SSD and the IO throughput. And I don't think that turned out to be the kind of game changer that Mark Cerny and the engineers and other people had hoped for. So I think the PS6 represents, I mean, if you think about it, I feel like it's going to be like the final form of what the PlayStation can be and what it can achieve, which is it's going to be by far the most powerful PlayStation console ever made, but it's going to have technologies. It's going to be using technologies that while they do exist now, they have not existed in the console space. You know, they've existed in the PC space for some time, and they're continuing to be, you know, refined and worked on. You're going to see that on a I think you've only seen it on the PS5 Pro so far, but outside of that, you haven't seen this tech in console gaming. It's just been kind of locked off. I think the idea is, I honestly, I think what we're about to see is a complete streamlining. The more I think about it, which would explain the partnership between AMD and Sony much more so, where it's just like, yeah, console benefits from this, but in a way, PC kind of benefits from it too. Because a lot of times devs would have to kind of go out of their way, if not go out of the way, just separate the work they're doing on PC from a console, you know, because it's like, well, there's these different technologies over here. I just wonder if this is going to kind of help streamline video game development in a way where it's like, I don't know, like optimization efficiency. I mean, that's the thing. They keep throwing the word efficiency around. Maybe that's all this is about now. Maybe the not fatal flaw, but a mistake with the PS5 and such a heavy focus on the SSD and the speed. Maybe the thing that kind of slipped through the cracks is, what about optimization? Because while the PS5 is easy to develop for, you know, let's face it, Mark Cerny's just trying to follow what the developers are doing and what they want. And one of the biggest problems we've seen in recent years is games not being optimized properly, whether it be for PS5, PS5 Pro, Xbox, PC. I mean, PC's been having a lot of problems in recent years. And I guess, you know, but Nintendo will always kind of be that outlier, I suppose. And games are taking longer, and part of that is because of optimization. All these different technologies. It seems like there needs to be a simplification, in a sense, a streamlining and a simplification, but not a dumbing down, like not a regression. So I guess like my high level thoughts on what Project Amethyst ultimately is going to be is a kind of potential unifying of, like, the bridging of the gap, I guess you could say, between console and PC. Not in terms of consoles the same as PC now. I mean it from a development standpoint, if that makes sense. You know, like, they're clearly going to be different environments for the consumer, where a console, you know, a PlayStation console is not going to be a Windows gaming PC. They're just two different things. But when a developer decides to make a game for PS5, but it's also going to be a multi-platform title that's on PC. I don't know, man. It's interesting. It really almost does seem like Sony's getting much closer to because let's face it, like, it almost seems to me that what's going on here between Mark Cerny and AMD, you know, we talk about the idea of Sony, or Mark Cerny, I should say, when he's putting these consoles together, he's not just picking the parts off the shelf and putting them in the box, right? There's always some level of customization. I think the PS6 is going to be, this is just a prediction of mine, I think it's going to come off as the least customized PlayStation console, but the reason for that is going to be because of what we're seeing right now. The things that AMD are offering are things that Mark Cerny literally helped them develop. So it's not so much like Mark Cerny's going to take what AMD did and then say, I'm going to make my own tweaks to it. It's just simply, I helped them make this thing. And we're just sharing it now. And I think like the PS6 may end up being the least custom console in a sense. Well, I don't know. It feels weird to say it like that because it's like, again, the architect of the PlayStation is directly involved. I think I'm doing a very bad job of communicating my thoughts here. It's going to be the furthest thing from what the PS3 was. Makui Ninja, you're saying sorry. It's called Megalites. I never heard of it. Well, see, that's the thing. PSSR, proprietary tech. By the way, guys, make sure you're hitting that like button on the stream to help it out. I like PSSR is. I don't think it's proprietary tech. I think Sony was considering making it proprietary tech, but then I think they realized that maybe the better way forward. I think Mark Cerny realizes like, because listen, I still haven't finished this video, but there's something that Jack from AMD says here that I think you guys are going to want to pay attention to, and I think it'll help better explain what I'm trying, the thought that I'm trying to get across. And Lady K comes in and drops a single member gift for you guys, letting everybody know you can always just drop single member gifts. They help. We did a members lounge yesterday, by the way, and the day before. So there are 2 members lounges out there. If you are a member, make sure you go check them out if you're looking for extra content. But if you get gifted a membership, or if you become a member, you can go check out that member content. Thank you for that, Lady K. Well, Wes, see, that's the thing. PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution isn't proprietary tech. I don't know about that. FSR is for PCs. Well, see, that's the thing. I think the first iteration of PSSR is kind of proprietary. I do. I think it is separate from FSR in the sense that it's just, I think devs have to go a little bit out of their way to utilize it, to figure it out, to, you know, it's, I guess, yeah, you can say like it's a more custom version of it. I think by Mark Cerny saying that the next version of PSSR is going to be the full fat version of FSR4, and there's been some confusion around this. People are like, wait, so is PSSR just now going to be FSR4? I think it's just a branding thing. I think the agreement is we're just going to do FSR4 because that's what developers are already familiar with. Like that's what they're already using for PC development. So if we could just put that on PlayStation, you know, because the PS5 Pro is the only piece of hardware that's capable of utilizing it. And the only alteration is we would like to call it, hey, AMD, if you're cool with it, which they are, because, you know, they have a partnership here, we would just like to call it on console PSSR. And so I think what this ultimately means is that developers, when they want to utilize it, like, I'll put it to you this way. If you see how the past couple of months there have been games coming out where devs are not properly utilizing PSSR, or there have been some issues with it, and there's just been like a string of games, not every game, but, you know, noticeable amount where it's like, what's going on here? And PS5 Pro users are starting to get a little frustrated, like, Sony, you got to get on them, bro. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? I think this next version of PSSR that's coming out next year is going to completely rectify that, in that developers are going to they're going to go to, they're like, okay, well, let's try to implement PSSR into our game here. Oh wait, this is just FSR4. You know, they're looking at it, they're comparing it to FSR4 on PC, and they're like, oh, this is the same thing. I think that's the kind of streamlining that I'm talking about here, where it, again, like you're going to have PSSR possibly on GTA 6 on the PS5 Pro, but I think that PSSR under the hood it really is just FSR4. And I think it's okay. I think it's okay because, like, dude, at this point, Mark Cerny, again, he's kind of bridging that gap where he's like, I am part of AMD and I'm part of Sony. I'm working for AMD on behalf of Sony. You know what I mean? It's like this collaboration, I think, is in an effort to kind of bridge that gap. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I may be oversimplifying it. I just think that oh, you're saying you think you need full RDNA 4, or you need RDNA 4 for full FSR 4. So maybe that's the tweaking that was necessary. Maybe it's just Mark Cerny kind of figuring out how to configure it to get it working on the PS5 Pro. I don't know. I just know that there's been some confusion with the way Mark Cerny's been talking about it a little bit. And there's like this, like, people have this idea that PSSR is going to be replaced by FSR4. And it's like, well, yes and no. Like, it's still going to be PSSR, but it will literally do what FSR4 does. Exactly. So it's like kind of like both are true at the same time, if that makes sense. Pushing polygons, you're saying that's not true? Yeah, we've been hearing that the big PS5 Pro update for PSSR is happening early next year. Yeah, Josh, we'll talk about that too. Hold on. FSR4 is being backported to RDNA 3. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. That's the best way to explain it. All right. Let's finish this video though, because I've kind of been sitting here for a while without playing it. I can't wait for the Twitter experts to tell me how trash this console will be. I'll tell you right now, before I finish this video, the big problem I'm seeing, and I think it's a problem that Sony can easily solve. In fact, I think I don't want to say it's the easiest problem to solve, but it's like, you're going to see, there's going to be two distinct points in time when we discuss the PS6. There's going to be before their games are shown and after the games are shown. And I feel like that's what makes some of this so hard to kind of navigate in conversing with people about the PS6, because yes, right now people are like, I don't want to hear about this. Sony, where are the games? See, that's kind of the irony though, is that, like, you see people like, I don't want to hear about next gen. I want to see more games. Where are the games? So like, Sony just showed you Wolverine, they showed you Soros, but it's, Ghost of Yotei's out, but it'll never be enough, and it's all a matter of timing. Right now, the PS6 feels like way too soon to be talking about. This is why I think you don't hear Mark Cerny use the term PS6. He doesn't, he only mentions console a few times, but everybody knows you're talking about the PS6, bro, but they don't want it to be discussed in this way yet, because Sony understands that, like, for a lot of people, it just feels like it's simply too soon. But yeah, people are gonna shit on it no matter what. Hold on, let's continue though.
We're excited to see how developers push ray tracing and path tracing even further with these tools. And here's the thing, whether it's ML or ray tracing, they both hit the same bottleneck. Current GPU memory bandwidth limitations hinder the seamless adoption of next-gen rendering techniques, requiring significantly more bandwidth to handle 4K plus textures and ray tracing denoising masks for smooth asset streaming. And that's where a final piece of news comes in. And yeah, it's a big one.
With current GPUs, including the ones in PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Pro, we have something called DCC, or Delta Color Compression. It's a strategy that reduces the memory bandwidth consumed when the GPU is reading or writing certain data, such as textures or render targets.
And what we've built for future GPUs and SoCs take the idea of data compression much further. We call it universal compression. It's a system that evaluates every piece of data headed to memory, not just textures, and compresses it whenever possible. Only the essential bytes are sent out, which dramatically reduces memory bandwidth usage. That means the GPU can deliver more detail, higher frame rates, and greater efficiency.
So my understanding of this, like as simply as I can try to understand this, I want to ask you guys this question. Would I be correct in saying that this universal compression might be the most impactful new technology that we're going to see for the PS6 that they just revealed here today? Am I right or wrong in saying that? Because this, like, my understanding of this, like the way I'm trying to like translate this, because you know they're being very technical about it. My understanding of this is they're basically saying, like, look, man, we found a way to make GPUs do a lot more without actually having to really change the GPU itself. Right? And that is through the data compression. That is through the way the data is processed and filtered. That's kind of my understanding of it. And again, this kind of, to me, feels like they basically focused on, like, again, they keep using the word efficiency. Like, how do we make what's already here like 10 times more efficient, 20 times more efficient? And the more efficient they make it, the better the results will be, I suppose, right? For your games, for developers who are making these games. No point getting excited for this without a price. I can mostly agree. I mean, I guess it depends on, like, for somebody like me, I'm going to get a PlayStation 6 no matter what, so I'm going to be excited. But yeah, I do think that for a lot of people, it's like, but how much? Because if it's going to be, I mean, if you look at the Pro's like $750 now without a disk drive. So it's like, this all sounds great, but like, am I going to have to pay $900? It's NVIDIA's shader execution reordering, which optimizes ray tracing / path tracing execution order so it doesn't get too complicated, which makes it much more expensive since GPUs favor parallel processing. Corey's like, what the hell did I just walk into here? Beep, bop, boop, boop. Oh, man. You bet PlayStation is tired of their games taking too long to make / release. I think everybody's getting tired of it, you know? I think you can see the problem clearly when it's like, how many Uncharted games did we get in the PS3 gen? You got 3 Uncharted games and The Last of Us. You got 4 new games from Naughty Dog during the PS3 era. How many did you get for the PS4? You got 2. How many did we get for the PS5? None, except for Intergalactic when that comes out. Yeah, I think that, like, I have to imagine a significant portion of this is about that efficiency, you know? It is about not necessarily AI making games and replacing game makers, but it's about It's about all these different technologies making it set. Okay, if you leverage this properly and you utilize this technology properly, you may be able to get your game out a year sooner. I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to work, but that's the hope, right? Because that is a huge problem. And Corey the Legend Landiga, he comes in. He says, what I walk into, I'm not sure, but I'm still going to drop the 5 memberships for you guys. So thank you for that, man. I will add that to
I'm no hero.
the counter here.
Never was.
7.
Never will be.
Appreciate that, Corey. Thank you. You love how consoles have become PC breakdowns now? Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, that's the thing. If this is why I'm saying I think the gap is being bridged here, where I do think you're seeing Sony essentially embracing a lot of the PC side of it. But still also, you know, retaining the fact that they're making a console. You know, they're going to make a console. It's not going to be a PC. But the differences will be minimal to a degree. And I think that's why when you saw the PS5 Pro revealed, there was a big hoopla between PlayStation gamers and PC gamers. And for the longest time, and I think the conversation still rages on to a degree, the conversation is like, you know, is the PS5 Pro taking on high-end PC gaming? Like, is it better? Is it like offering better performance at a cheaper price point? Stuff like this. And yeah, I mean, that to a degree is where we are. And certainly I would say more so going into next gen. The bridge was built with the PS5 Pro. Well, yeah, this is also another reason why Microsoft probably is like, listen, if we're going to do another device, let's just make it basically a PC. Like, I mean, you got to admit that if there was ever a time to do it, now would be that time. I'm not saying it's going to turn things around for them and sales wise, but yeah, it does make sense where it's like, maybe we just go that direction now. Because even Sony, who isn't going to go all the way in that direction, even they're beginning to kind of like, yeah, let's start unifying these things. Third party is the issue right now. Yeah, it's weird. The issues that are prevalent across all of game development right now are problems that I don't think Mark Cerny and AMD alone can solve. But I think they're going to try. They're going to do what they can. You're saying PlayStation has been like PC since 2013? Yeah, I would agree with that. And over time, it's been a slow kind of like becoming more and more so like PC in the sense that it's becoming less and less custom. But I did see that, Verco. Yeah, the full spec leak of Magnus. The thing that I can't get over about the Magnus specs is everybody's saying this thing is going to be like minimum like $900 to $1,000. And that just really makes me quite like, I'm not shocked by that because it's like, okay, I guess if it's going to be that powerful, and that's the thing, it's big. Like it is like the epitome of like massive raw power in a giant GPU configuration. It's the APU is huge, but the pricing is going to match that. And this is why I'm so interested to see what the pricing of the PS6 ends up looking like, because Sony's trying to avoid that at all costs, like literally, because the cost of it will ruin their business model. So it's interesting to see the different directions. You're saying that's delusional. A high-end PC is not comparable. I would agree with that. I don't think a high-end PC is comparable to what you see with consoles, no matter how powerful maybe that conversation will change with Magnus if people do view that as a console. But yeah, that's why I always found the conversation between the PS5 Pro and high-end console gaming, high-end PC gaming, it just seems kind of pointless to me because it's like, I don't know, man, like the whole idea of high-end PC gaming is you will get unmatched performance, but you're going to pay for it. But that's the whole idea, is the people who are doing that are happy to pay for it. Like, yes, I'm not interested in a box that is priced at $700 or $800 because it's still going to be limited. I'm interested in the box, so to speak, or the the PC that I can spend $2,500 on and go crazy with, right? Or even $1,500 on and get much more out of it. That's why I've always just felt like it does make sense, I guess, at the end of the day, why you can begin to see that PC is not seen as a competitor. Maybe it never was to console, where it's just like these are just two different things, man, existing in two different spaces. Yeah. So I'm sure, I'm positive, especially with the Magnus console from Microsoft, I'm positive that there's going to be huge PC comparisons. But I do wonder if there will be a kind of separation because of Magnus, where it's like we're going to use Magnus as like the baseline to compare to PC, to mid to high end PC. And the PlayStation 6 isn't even really going to be part of it because the PlayStation 6 is still existing in the console space. We'll have to see how that works, though. I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. Let me finish this video, though. I've been taking forever.
Here too, I'm really looking forward to what improvements universal compression will bring, and to what degree the effective bandwidth of the GPU will exceed its paper spec. There's a multitude of benefits from this, including lower power consumption, higher fidelity assets, and perhaps most importantly, the synergies that universal compression has with neural arrays and radiance cores, as we work to deliver the best possible experiences to gamers. Overall, it's of course still very early days for these technologies. They only exist in simulation right now, but the results are quite promising, and I'm really excited about bringing them to a future console in a few years' time.
We feel the same way, Mark, and we're so excited to bring these innovations to developers across every gaming platform. Because this isn't just about silicon, it's about empowering the creators and communities that make gaming what it is. And we're just getting started. As we continue building with close partners like Sony, everything we're doing is focused on one thing: pushing games forward for all of you. Gaming has always been at the heart of what we do, and it's never meant more than it does right now. We're here for the players, the creators, and the communities that make this industry matter. And everything we're building is for you. Thank you, Mark, so much for taking time to join me here today.
Thank you, Jack.
We do. And it's never meant more. Continue building with close partners like Sony. Everything gaming platform. Every gaming platform.
So that part is a part that some people were paying attention to. That's a crazy freeze frame. The emphasizing every gaming, like what Mark Cerny is doing with Project Amethyst is not exclusive or proprietary to PlayStation. That's so important to understand, because this is what's so different about the build up to the PS6 and this collaboration. Sony has never really, I don't know, like they traditionally, like at least in the early days of PlayStation with the PS2, the PS3, like they were not, like this is the opposite of what they were doing. Microsoft can make the best console ever, still won't sell. Well, that's why I'm saying I think the whole idea is we're gonna give you a fucking giant APU Xbox Magnus beast PC-esque console form factor thing box, and it's gonna be expensive as hell, and it's not gonna sell that great, but the people who want it are gonna be happy with it, and I think Microsoft will be happy. Even if they only sell a couple million, we make a good handsome profit on every unit sold. We make some good money on it. I think they'll be happy with that. But yeah, I think you're going to see a clear separation where like Magnus is not, I almost wonder if the rumors that we were covering recently about the idea of the Xbox console being canceled, I almost wonder if the confusion is that initially Microsoft was going to try to make a more traditional console to compete with the PS6 and the Switch 2, but maybe at the last minute they were like, you know what, actually, let's do something different. Let's go more on the PC set. Let's lean more so into, let's try to compete more so with like pre-built PCs rather than consoles. Maybe that was where the big change occurred. Because nothing about Magnus sounds like a traditional console. AMD worth 3 times Sony. They are out to make money. Dude, I saw the AMD partnered with OpenAI and like holy shit. They skyrocketed, man. So I'm sure Sony's happy about this collaboration. And I think Sony wants to get in good with AMD and be on their side because AMD's clearly they're moving up, you know. I think it's a smart collaboration. I'm just so curious how all of this is going to translate, man, to the reveal of the PS6 because I mean, yeah, let's face it, like it's hard to get truly excited about the stuff when we're just, you know, it's all the nerdy tech talk. We got to see the game. We got to see it in action. Not even just the games, but we have to see it in action. We have to, you know, we're going to need the Jim Ryan to come out of retirement for just one day to present the PS6 and say the line. Say the line. We'll let the games do the talking, you know? And hopefully they do, because I think that's what's going to be needed more than anything to win over people for next gen. PlayStation Pete with a $5 super chat says Rush is back with drummer Anika Millis. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. A female German 42 plays all styles since age 6. Has YouTube content as good as Neil, John, and Buddy. Damn. I saw like I think it was Rick Beato. He was like, Rush has a new drummer or something. And I meant to click on the video, but I didn't. And I was going to go back and watch it. I'm going to have to check that out. That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't think we would ever see Rush get a new drummer. That's crazy though, man. Since age 6. I'll have to look into it. And Hellbound 1981, another legend. Hellbound comes in and drops another 5 member gifts for you guys. Hellbound, thank you for that, buddy. I'll add that to the counter here. That brings us to 12. And so, before I take this off the screen, and I got a super chat from Michael. He says, MBG, check out the tweet from Logic IQ. Logic IQ. I don't know who this is. Let me see. Logic IQ. Is that their actual tag, Michael? Because I'm not seeing anything come up. Oh, by the way, I went to go check out a little bit of that Asmongold video. I don't watch Asmongold. Like, I don't follow him or anything. But I saw that he put out a video on Concord devs. And I watched a little bit of it. And I was like, yeah, dude, I don't know what's going on. It seems like the Concord devs are kind of salty. It was, this is kind of hard to watch. It's like, damn, dude, what are they talking about? I'm just trying to figure out Logic. I'm going to be careful. All right, let me get this off the screen now. Hold on one sec. Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's going to be really interesting to see how this how all of this comes together to make up the PlayStation 6 and PlayStation 6 games. Let me head back over to the chat. They said Sony wanted DEI crap in the game. Yeah, I hope that's not true, man. That's what they were saying. It was like some of it was pushed by the publisher, and I'm like, I don't know. I think even Asmongold was like, maybe some of it, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I'll tell you what, though, man. If it really did go that far, where like that was something that was kind of mandated from Sony, or they were pushing for that, well, I think they found out that like, yeah, not a good not a good way to go about it. It's Herman. It's fucking Herman, bro. Why does Herman keep doing this to us? Yeah, I'll have to finish watching the rest of that video though. Who am I looking for? Well, Michael Radian was saying, MBG, check out a tweet from Logic IQ. Sony loves a female lead. They do. They do. We'll see, though. We'll see if the pendulum swings the other way now. They're going to go too far in the other direction. Oh, Eric, thank you. Okay. Appreciate that. Let me see here. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with this person. Well, now I'm confused at what post I'm supposed to be looking at, because there's a few different things here. Yeah, I'm not sure who this person is. Sorry, Michael. I'm not sure, Michael. I'm not sure. The Microsoft future. Let me see. I'm looking now. Michael, is this you, bro? Still looking. Michael, I can't find what you're talking about. I mean, there's so many different things. I'm sorry. I tried, man. No, I found the person. I found the person. Oh, it's all good, Michael. No, I mean, I'm just trying to see what you're talking about. Yeah, there's still so much circulating, though. That's the thing. There's so much circulating, and this week has been kind of strange. It's been a kind of strange week. And yeah, there's been some mix-ups with things. People trying to get their ducks in a row, I guess you could say. Incrumbable? Yo, Corey, what is that word? What are you saying right now, man? I'm perplexed. Do I think Mark Cerny has complete freedom, or he gets a to-do list from Sony? I think he gets a. I think he does have complete freedom, but I think he gets a basic set of parameters where it's like it can't be more. Like, it can't go past this price range. You know, like you have to find a way to make it work within this price range. I think that's probably as far as it goes because I think it needs to. Okay, Luna is literally on her back, like playing with her tail. What are you doing, Luna? Oh, she's being a real weirdo over there. Okay. Tarnished, you're saying you wrote it? What did you write? Oh, the word. Okay. Is that a real word? Tarnished, if that's a real word, you use words that I've never even heard in my life. Like, I don't know where you come up. I don't know where you find these words. I don't know what that word is. I saw something going around about a canceled Assassin's Creed game. Some people were saying it sounded really cool, actually. I've never been into Assassin's Creed, really. No, it's not a word? Okay. You could have told me it was. I would have believed you. I'll be honest. No, so like Mark Cerny, he is the full-blown architect of the PlayStation 6. And I just think that before he goes about making a PlayStation 6, you know, Mark Cerny's probably talking frequently with Hideaki Nishino and maybe even Hiroki Totoki. It's hard to say, but certainly the leadership at the top of PlayStation, he's talking with them all the time and working very closely with them because they have specific goals in mind. And one of the goals with Sony, with the PlayStation 6, and again, I think this is where you're going to see the biggest difference between Sony and Microsoft in the next year or two, is Sony wants to make sure they can continue to reach the mass market. Sony is okay making the price of their Pro PlayStation 5 console $700 or more because it's for people who really want it. It's not going to be their main driver of sales. It's for the enthusiast, right? But believe me when I tell you that if you look at the digital PS5 right now, it's $500. Sony is probably, they're going to try to not go above that. And the reason being is because they know once they lose that $500 base price point for the PS5, it's going to become a harder sell. Once the base price point of the PS5 goes from 500 to 550, it's getting into that territory of like, okay, got to be real careful here. And then you think about the PlayStation 6 and you think, well, and that's another thing. A lot of what's being discussed here from Sony and from Mark Cerny, or AMD and Mark Cerny, I mean to say, you have to think about how this is going to apply to the PlayStation 6 handheld. We know that the handheld is real. We have the specifications for it. And the big thing about this, in my opinion, with the handheld is that when you look at the on-paper specifications, it tells you it's less powerful than a base PS5. But Moore's Law is dead. The person who leaked the specs for the PlayStation 6 handheld did emphasize that, you know, this is next generation technology from AMD. And there are still probably some things we don't know yet. Not necessarily in terms of specs, but things that we're learning now. These are all things that are going to make a big difference in real world performance and what you end up seeing at the end of the day. So while you may hear that the on-paper specifications of a PlayStation 6 handheld are less than what you would get power-wise in a PS5 a base PS5, the results that you see in a game running on this handheld may actually be significantly better than, maybe if not significant, in some ways slightly better than what you even see on a base PS5 right now, or as good as what you see on a base PS5 at the very least. And yeah, man, it's really interesting. I can't really gauge how people are feeling about this. I've been seeing mixed responses from people. Um, some people are excited. Some people feel like it's just too soon. Um, a top reply. I put the news out about the PlayStation 6, about Project Amethyst, the neural arrays, the radiance cores, and somebody left this reply, and it was a top reply, and they said anybody else put off due to the lack of respect for raw power, which is a really strange way to put that. I've owned every PlayStation device ever made. For some reason, the PS6 windup is rubbing me the wrong way. I've never fallen prisoner to 60 FPS. I just want true, crisp 4K and ray tracing. Is the PS6 not for me? This is a very, very, very strange reply. Like, I'm not saying it's not a real person. I'm just saying it's written in such a bizarre way. I don't understand. I've never fallen prisoner to 60 FPS. But I responded to this person, and I said Sony is going to try to deliver a next gen console that won't be absurdly priced while offering significant and tangible improvements. If you want a next gen console that is all about brute force through simple raw power, it will likely end up being $1,000 or more. And this person says, which to me would be a steal for tens of thousands of hours of entertainment over the span of 7 years, to be honest. I never understand why people think $1,000 is a lot of money compared to the hours we get out of these things. And that's the thing. I'm sure that Sony will have a PlayStation 6 Pro that will be $1,000 or more dollars, and that will be exactly what somebody like this wants. Where it's like, if the asking price isn't a problem for you, that's probably where you're going to want to lean. But I just think too many people are failing to realize that, guys, like, you have two options here. Either a less powerful console on paper, so it can be an affordable price point at $600, give or take, or more raw power on paper and a more expensive console, like significantly more expensive. I honestly feel like saying to this person, like, it sounds like you should probably go for the Magnus console or hybrid, That might be your best bet, because if money's not the problem for you and you're looking for that raw power, that's where you're going to get it. But it all does come down to the developers, man. I think one of the benefits of of Sony doing so well during the PS4 generation and the PS5 generation is that they're going into the PlayStation 6 with a massive developer support, man. Like, third party is huge on PlayStation. So whatever Sony chooses to do, a lot of developers are going to be on board with it. But that's what I find so fascinating, is a lot of what Sony's choosing to do here is seemingly going to also, again, it kind of aligns with the PC side of things, or it's bridging that gap more so than we've ever seen. So, yeah, and that's true too. You can always buy a $3,500 PC. I'm going to be honest, man. I find it bizarre that this person is questioning why the PlayStation 6 isn't going to be $1,000. I don't know. I just see strange behavior from people where it's like, bro, what? Like, you want this thing to be $1,000? Like, and I get it. There are some people that want Sony to go crazy, but it's like, wait for the Pro. Like, wait for the Pro. Or go to PC. Like, you could go crazy on PC. You go absolutely wild over there. I don't know. It's just such a strange interaction. I've never fallen prisoner to 60 FPS. What does that mean, man? like, dude, is he like bragging that he only ever played 30 FPS? I'm very confused, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just very confused. Neural networks are the next gen brute force. This is what will provide that next gen graphical leap. NVIDIA is going that route too. Even with their high end GPUs, all companies are going that route. Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be the case. I guess it's just for me, I kind of have to see what that looks like. You know, I'm in the same boat, I think, as most other people, where it's like, I'm just not sure what that means for, you know, the next God of War on the PlayStation 6. I don't know what that means for that game. I can only assume it means you're going to see, like, if you look at God of War Ragnarok right now and you think, damn, that looks really good on my PS5 Pro. When you see the next God of War built for the PlayStation 6 utilizing all this tech, it's going to be like, holy shit. And I thought Ragnarok looked good. You know what I mean? Like, this looks next level. That's my assumption. That's my only assumption. That's as far as I can take it. You think he's a troll? I mean, he could be trolling. It's a strange troll if that's what he's doing. But the other thing we have to talk about here too is what Mark Cerny said. He said, quote, overall, it's of course still very early days for these technologies. They only exist in simulation right now, but the results are quite promising, and I'm really excited about bringing them to a future console in a few years' time. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about this because a lot of people are, I think, jumping to a conclusion here that I think they're going to be wrong about. Tarnish, you're saying, yeah, I agree, MBG. It's still unclear how that will materialize or manifest, but proof of concepts and early demos are already up on the internet and they look extremely promising. Yeah, I mean, Mark Cerny, that's kind of the terminology he's been using. He's saying that everything that they've been working on is looking promising. And Mark Cerny's not a marketing guy. I mean, obviously he's not gonna come out and say, guys, this is gonna suck. You know, he's not gonna do that. But I'm saying he really does come from the he's coming from an engineer angle. You know what I mean? Like, he's somebody who is excited and passionate, obviously, about what he's doing. But I'm just saying, I think there's a genuine interest from Mark, where he is a developer. You know, he's worked on many games, and I think he really wants to just genuinely find a way. Like, for example, in this video, when he says, like, we're trying to do this for gamers and we want to deliver more great games for you guys, and that's the whole point. I actually believe that. Like, I think Mark Cerny's not bullshitting when he says that type of stuff. I think that's really what he's trying to do. And you know, I believe in Mark and AMD and their collaboration. Like, I think that they could produce some really fantastic results. Um, I'm just curious to see, once it's time for Sony to kind of rev the engine and ring the bell, so to speak, and the marketing is in full swing. Like, now we're gonna make sure that by the time you walk out of here, the first thing you're gonna want to do is pre-order a PlayStation 6. I'm just really curious to see how that materializes, because I imagine we will see tech demos. I mean, you could see Sony come out with another partnership with Epic for Unreal Engine 5 for the PS6, stuff like that. And I think we'll see stuff like that. But, you know, you love the do-rag look. It is just my hat backwards, but yeah, it always looks like a do-rag. So, do-rag gang, you know? The new RE engine or new Fox engine on the PS6. Do rag BG. Well, yeah, we have to be careful not to overhype things. I do think there was. I don't know if the PS5 was overhyped. I really don't know if that's how people feel about it. I think some people do. Like, frankly, some people just feel very disappointed about this generation in general. But I don't know. I think the PS5 in many ways delivered on its promise. But I think the struggle I think the struggle that Mark Cerny has and has had starting with the PS5 is he has to kind of try to predict where things are headed. And he has to develop a console that, 5-6 years down the line is not going to be totally out of the loop because he had a complete understanding or completely missed the mark on where he sees game development going in the next 5 years. This is why I do think the collaboration with AMD is going to be much more beneficial for the PS6 this time around, because AMD certainly has a very good idea of where game development is headed, right? And I think that Mark Cerny being on the ground floor with AMD, being part of that now, and all those minds kind of working together, I think that's smart. I think that's that's going to produce better results for PlayStation, not just with the next generation, but in general going forward. And of course, you have PlayStation Studios. You know, Mark is going to go around and ask every PlayStation Studio development team, like, what are you guys looking to achieve? What do you guys want? Um, and I'll never forget, I think it was last year, Mark Cerny did an interview, and he was asked what I think is an interesting question. He was asked, like, why is it that AAA games have to keep getting bigger? Why is it that AAA games are getting bigger? What do you think's the cause of this? What's going on there? And his answer was, and I just think it's so interesting to hear it from him, because he literally does talk to developers. He works with developers. He said because that's what they want to do. Developers want to keep making bigger and bigger games, more ambitious games. They don't want to stop. That's what they want to keep doing. That's why I think this intense focus on efficiency with this new technology and this collaboration with Project Amethyst, the focus on efficiency and trying to open up as much bandwidth as possible for developers, where you don't have to worry. Like, I think the dream, right? The dream is developers don't have to stress about, well, what about 4K resolution? Don't worry about it. You got an upscaler. It's going to take care of it. Oh, sweet. Okay, well, what about like ray tracing and lighting? Don't worry, you have dedicated cores for that. It's going to take care of it. No problem. Oh, well, we can easily hit 60 FPS. And I think, like, once you get to that point, it's like, damn, this is a big game we made, somewhat demanding game, and we still have all this overhead left, or this bandwidth that we could do more. We can do much more now than we ever could, because we have these new technologies. We have this machine learning. We have, again, the radiance cores. We have all this stuff that's the compression, the universal compression. I think there's just going to be much more room now for developers to, if not just optimize more efficiently, right? I think that'll be like at a base level what we can expect. But the notion that maybe you can do more with your game than you originally thought because you have this bandwidth. I don't know. I'm not a game dev, so I don't know how far this goes. I'm curious if we're going to hear from game devs with this. Like, I'm curious if we're going to hear any game devs come out and kind of react to what Mark Cerny is saying here with AMD, and if they're going to give their thoughts on it. Neural arrays, neural radiance caching, radiance cores, and universal compression. Mark Cerny does it again, bro. How's he keep doing this? Cernyism. So, like, oh, hold on, let me see. What is this? I'm trying to find the Reddit thread where this came out or where this was posted. Here it is. Let's see. It'll never cease to blow my mind that the dude that designed Marble Madness 40 fucking years ago is now the dude behind PlayStation hardware. LOL. Somebody says you got to start somewhere. Another top commenter says he's ridiculously important to PlayStation in general. He's really responsible for Naughty Dog's relationship with PlayStation. Back when he was at Universal, he was so impressed that they managed to make Way of the Warrior with their own money, which was on a shoestring budget even back then, and out of their apartment, more or less, that he signed them to a 3-game deal, which obviously ended up being Crash Bandicoot. Somebody says, big news here, machine learning upscaling. Rather than the current approach on PS5 Pro, where the task has to be subdivided amongst the compute units, the future hardware RDNA 5 can have its compute units connected so it can, quote, team up and tackle the task wholly. This means the processing of the machine learning upscaling will be more efficient and the results will look better. Big upgrades for AMD GPUs. Finally, there might be a reason to actively choose AMD over NVIDIA. They've been more generous with VRAM, but the GPU features were just lacking. They managed to bridge the gap with FSR4 when it comes to machine learning upscaling, but its ray tracing solution was still far behind NVIDIA. Radiance cores should do what FSR4 did and allow AMD to catch up, sorely needed in the PC GPU space. And of course, PlayStation hardware will benefit from all of this too. Edit. The funny thing is the PS6 portable should be able to do better ray tracing and machine learn upscaling than the PS5, but with a lot less silicon and GPU grunt thanks to the new hardware dedicated to the tasks. For example, Outlaws on Switch 2 has better image quality than the game does on the Series S, showing the benefit of more advanced machine learning hardware compared to the RDNA 2 architecture. Those new Radiance cores are going to be able to pack more of a punch on ray tracing, even on a portable piece of hardware, than the 36 compute units could inside of the PS5. And given how bandwidth is a massive problem on portable hardware, the universal compression tech is going to be a godsend for the PS6 portable. See, this person worded it so much better than I could have, but that's like a big thing. That's what I was really trying to convey in my video today. It's like I understand it. I have trouble getting the words out in a way that makes sense like that. But that was well put, and I'm glad I read that because, yeah, man, I think that this is going to be. I think a lot of this technology is going to be even bigger for the PlayStation handheld than it's going to be for the actual home console. If I remember correctly, he was also a big part of the creation of Sonic the Hedgehog back in the day. I wouldn't be surprised. Mark Cerny's got like insane history in the games industry. Ray, you're saying, MBG, it's not just the devs. They make bigger games because it's what we expect, better graphics and FPS and ray tracing. They make the games bigger because they want us to buy it. That's true too. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of that drive comes from, people wanting more and better. Here's the link, by the way. This is to the it's just to the PS5 subreddit where I was reading some of these replies. The ray tracing cores are huge for AMD. They've been behind ray tracing for so long because they haven't had the dedicated hardware. Their hardware acceleration was always half-assed compared to NVIDIA. It never went as far or did as much, and so much of the rest of the system had to pick up the slack. The performance always dropped by a greater degree for a worse result. This could close the gap so much. This person says all of this is strictly for the PS6, which is exciting. Somebody says most likely the PS6 and PS6 portable late 2027. So yeah, let's talk about that for a moment because this is a big thing that I said earlier. I think there's something a lot of people are now walking away from with this, and they're assuming that they're right. Oh my God, Luna, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're being very weird. I don't know what's going on. So when Mark Cerny said, he said at the end of this video that all this technology is, he can't wait to implement all of this technology into a future console, you know, one that's going to be coming in a few years' time. That's the way he worded it, a few years' time. A lot of people are walking away from that feeling that this is essentially confirmation that the PlayStation 6 is not a 2027 console, but is actually a 2028 console. And I have to question why this is. I'm just confused as to why the assumption is that, oh, that means 2028. Why is it just because that's how it feels like when he says a few years time? Because I need to remind people that as of right now, based off of every leak and every rumor we have received, especially from Moore's Law is Dead, who actually leaked the entire PlayStation 6 home console and handheld APU, the documentation that he has gotten a hold of, everything basically points to mass production beginning in the middle of 2027 in preparation for a holiday 2027 release. And I think some people are getting a little bit ahead of themselves where it's like a few years. You think so? Gavin, you're saying no native English speaker would call 2 years a few years. You may be right. Let's see. What does a few years mean? Let's see what AI has to say about this. A few years refers to a small, indefinite number of years, generally understood to be more than 2, but fewer than 5 or 6. Ah, okay. All right. So, while not an exact figure, the specific quantity can vary depending on the context of the conversation, but it's always okay. Does a few mean 3 or 4? I mean, we're really getting into the semantics of it here, but I feel like it's kind of important. A couple means 2, yeah, but I think he said, let me get the exact wording. Hold on.
We've been working,
time.
We feel the same way, Mark.
Simulation right now, but the results are quite promising, and I'm really excited about bringing them to a future console in a few years' time.
So he said a few years' time. I gotta go to AI to figure out what a few means, bro. When was this interview? I'm assuming this was filmed in the last few months. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying not to read too much into it, but it's like I'm seeing a lot of people take this as it's going to be a 2028 console. I don't believe that. I really don't. I do think that even though I think saying it that way a few years' time is easily interpreted as beyond 2 years, I'm fairly certain this is still on track for holiday 2027. Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing why I think that. Even Microsoft with Project Magnus or Xbox Magnus, even they're targeting 2027. So I'm like, do I want the PlayStation 6 to release holiday 2027? It's a good question. I mean, I would be okay with it not releasing that soon. I would have no problem. I would actually be totally okay with it coming out later in 2028 or something. But I also kind of don't mind. I feel like the problem is the same. I would think of it like this. Here's how I'm trying to view it. If this was last generation, it would be what? It would be October 2018. And if somebody had asked me in October of 2018, does the PlayStation 5 coming out November 2020 seem too soon? I'm going to tell you right now, man, a lot of people at that time would have told you that feels too soon. A lot of people, like, there hardly anybody was talking about the PS5 in 2018. There were like some rumblings, You think they're taking his words too literally? I think so too, potentially. Holiday 2028. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, maybe Sony doesn't have it locked in yet. Maybe they want to strive for holiday 2027, but maybe it's going to be more to do with the games that are ready to launch with it. Maybe that could have something to do with it. Maybe they're kind of being flexible with it. I think it does have a lot to do with, I don't think Sony views Microsoft as competition anymore. I don't. However, with that being said, I don't think Sony wants to take a chance, if that makes sense. You know, like, I think they are doing their own thing and they're confident in that they don't need to worry about Microsoft anymore. But it's like, do we think Sony would be okay with letting Microsoft release new hardware ahead of them by like a year? I mean, I don't know. I feel like Sony would be like, we don't want to take the chance. We're pretty sure I think Sony would be fine. But I just think from a more business oriented standpoint, they're like, well, just in case, you know, we should be there to meet that. But I don't know. Maybe Sony will push it to 2028. Oh yeah, true. That would be like an election year. The tariff situation. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's also why they want to be flexible with it. The only reason they would have it holiday 2028 is the tariffs will be gone by then with the present administration, so maybe, but doubtful. Yeah, maybe Xbox really it doesn't matter when they release it, because maybe Sony. I mean, look, man, if those leaked Xbox Magnus specs are true, I don't think Sony has to worry at all, because like that thing's gonna be very expensive. It's going to be the console equivalent of what we see with the Xbox Ally X, ROG Ally X. We have the one no reeler, a member for 3 months. He says Sony moved up because of Xbox. The fact that Xbox is not doing hardware, home console means they don't have to rush. Well, yeah, I don't know. We don't know what Sony knows about Microsoft's plans. Maybe Sony knows a lot more than we do. Like, Sony is like, yeah, this is going to be a PC. Maybe that's how Microsoft was able to get Helldivers on Xbox, is they reassured Sony, like, listen, Sony, we're going to be putting Steam on our hardware in like 2 years. And it's going to be Windows. It's going to be a PC, Sony. That's what we're trying to tell you. It's going to be a PC. It's fine. You know, like, if you want to just drop this game on our console now as it's wrapping up, no worries. I mean, it sounds not conspiratorial, but I don't know if these kind of like conversations happen. But it is possible that these conversations have occurred between Sony and Microsoft, and Sony was basically told, well, let's face it, freaking, Mark Cerny is working with AMD. I'm sure Mark knows, and I'm sure Mark would talk to Sony and be like, they're making a PC. Like, it's a PC, you know? Now, keep in mind, Mark Cerny and AMD did emphasize that everything that they're working on is going to benefit all platforms. So whatever Sony's coming up with here, like, Microsoft conceivably will be able to use it as well if they want. PS6 for fall 2027 looks very plausible. It's still far away. People don't realize that. I know. That's the thing, Tarnished, is people kind of, I think they talk about holiday 2027 like not real. Like, when we say 2027, people think, oh, that's like a little over a year away. We're talking about November 2027. If anything, it would be more realistic to say 2028, because it's going to be launching much closer to 2028 than it is to 2026, you know? So if they're targeting November 2027, we have over 2 years. We have 2 years and a month, basically. That's a long time, dude. You know, you're talking about 25 months. That's a long ass time. And a lot can happen in that. Trust me, a lot can happen. A lot will happen in that time frame. And so I think a lot of people are just kind of getting ahead of themselves when they hear 2027. They just assume it's going to be like March 2027. It's like, no. It's going to be the end of the year. And it's going to feel like 2028 when the PS6 comes out. A few years, it's not rocket surgery. It is rocket surgery. I'd be okay with a November 2027 PS6. You're saying 25 months will pass very quickly, Irfan? Yeah, probably. Listen, man, the sooner the better. And you know why? Because I'm pretty sure the only way we're getting a fucking PlayStation showcase is when they have a new console to show us. So I want the showcase. Bring on the new console, Sony. If this is what it takes to get the showcase, then I'm going to cheer it on. I want the showcase. I am very curious. I am curious to see how Sony's going to... I'm curious because, like, you have to imagine any studio that's targeting the PlayStation 6 release, they know right now. Right? So, like, there are studios at PlayStation that are currently working on PlayStation 6 games. Which studios do we think they are? Which games are going to appear at the PlayStation 6 showcase event? I mean, I feel like Blue Point, Sony Bend, Naughty Dog's second game, perhaps? I mean, are we starting to think that Cory Barlog's game, his new game is going to be, you know, a PS6, a game that's ready to launch on the PS6? MBG, they already have dev kits, Capcom, Square Enix. Where'd you hear that, Alma? I don't think they have dev kits yet. Sony, please give MBG a showcase so he can sleep well at night. I wake up screaming. I see Concord in my dreams, man. In my nightmare. In my nightmares. If the console's going to launch in 2 years, they must have dev kits ready. Well, let me see. When did PS5 dev kits go out? So it says PS5 dev kits were sent to developers starting around mid 2019. So that's about a year and a half before. So in 2018, rumors circulated about the first PS5 dev kits. In mid 2019, some developers received early versions of the dev kits. In late 2019, photos of the dev kits showing their unusual design were leaked. So if Sony follows this same timeline, then it seems like the first dev kits will go out. I'm assuming it to first party studios will get them first. First party studios might be getting dev kits very soon. Or they may already have an idea of what they're going to be, right? I'm thinking like mid 2026, May, June, around that time. That's when we're going to probably start hearing rumors of dev kits shipping out. And then not too long after, we'll probably start getting those leaks. You think we need a showcase next year? We don't know anything beyond 2026. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think Sony's going to coast for the rest of the gen. Resident Evil Requiem has path tracing and a few neural rendering technologies on PC via NVIDIA RTX GPUs. Early PS6, yay. Damn. I think Sony's going to coast for the rest of the gen. And this is what I mean by that. I think they have a pattern that's working. Like Sony won the gen, is what I'm trying to say. Not in some kind of like cocky way. I just mean they won. You know, like they have GTA 6 coming next year for them to close out the gen. They have Wolverine closing out the gen. They have Intergalactic probably also closing out the gen. And I'm sure there's a couple of smaller things, maybe. But I think you're going to see Sony approach 2026 where, yeah, their big games are going to be Saros and Wolverine, and maybe, again, a few smaller side things that haven't been revealed yet. Maybe like that God of War Metroidvania. They're going to have GTA 6 and massive third-party support. And then think about it. Once they get through 2026, once we get to January 2027, that's when, you know, we're moving into, okay, now in the next 6 months, we're going to start hearing about, we're going to be seeing articles coming out, you know, interviews. We're going to be seeing, yeah, Phantom Blade Zero is coming out as well. We're going to be seeing rumors of a showcase and shit like that, you know, and we're going to be building up to a next gen showcase, you know, in like April, May, or June of 2027. And so Sony will probably have Intergalactic and something else that we don't know about yet, one other game. And they're just going to, I think basically what they're going to try to do is have a shit ton ready to go for the PS6. I that's my guess. I think Sony is, like, think about it. If you're in charge at Sony, and I know this sounds shitty, but I'm just trying to think from a business-oriented standpoint. If I was in charge at Sony, and it's like, listen, you're going to be launching a next-gen console holiday 2027. Here's the amount of studios you have. Here's the amount of games that are in development. Here's the timetables. And I also know that GTA 6 is coming out next year. I'm going to say, okay, try to hold back as much as we can for the PS6. And the biggest reason I'm going to say that is because if everything else fails, this gen is already a success for them. The PS5 already won. It's the most profitable generations for Sony so far. From a business-oriented standpoint, your focus now is we need the PS6 to do better. We need the PS6 to succeed. If everything else fails, there's one thing that won't. The games. That is the safety net, in that if our marketing for the PS6 fails because it's like it just doesn't land, and it's like, people aren't buying it. You know, like they're not hyped for the hardware. Okay. If any of the features that we have that make, you know, oh, they're just gimmicks, nobody cares. Okay. If the hardware and feature side fails to generate excitement, then Sony is only going to have one other card left to play, and that is, here are the games. Now, to be fair, I think they're going to be cross-gen. So even though they're saving them, if they do save them, I think they're going to be cross-gen. So if you don't go to PS6, I think, but see that kind of, never mind. That kind of fucking kills it. Because it's like, then what's even the point? What's even the point? Reveals, maybe? Like reveals just for the sake of reveals? MBG says, sandbag Sony, hold out on us. Corpo MBG confirmed back again. I'm Corpo BG, bro. I'm just trying to be realistic in that, like, I don't know. Even if Sony does a PS6 event and every game that they show is like a cross-gen game, it's going to be, I think Sony wants to create an image around the PlayStation 6. And that image, I think, wants to be fucking games on top of games, bro. Like, it's not going to matter that they're available on PS5. You're going to see these games marketed alongside the PS6. And so I think, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I say that, but then again, Sony doesn't operate that way. They really don't. Like, maybe new Sony does, maybe the new leadership of Sony does, but like, think about the PS5 in 2020. Sony launched two of their biggest games ever, The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, back to back with no PS5 versions. You know? Like, if anything, I might be looking at it from the complete opposite end, and I'm wrong about it, where it's like, no, dude, they're going to, like, 2027 is going to be a fucking bonkers year for the PS5. And the PS6 is going to have still a strong launch lineup, but, the closing out of the PS5 is going to be crazy. It could be something like that. Because what I just described about Sony holding their games, or like, we want to save these for the PS6 reveal, they've never done that. And if you want to go based on their history, then the pattern tells you they're not going to do that now. But I feel nervous for the PlayStation 6. I do. Like, more so than I did the PS5, the PS4, and any other previous gen. I feel nervous for the PlayStation 6 because I'm like, I don't know. I see the way people are reacting to, Project Amethyst, any PS6 rumors we get, and people, again, their minds could change. 2 years is still a long time. Demon Souls remake, remastered. Absolutely. People could change their minds, but I don't know. I kind of feel like, I don't know. I feel like, like, you see what people, they're like, where are the games? Where are the games? Where are the games, Sony? I don't know. For all I know, I would, if I was in charge, I would destroy accidentally, of course, but I would end up having the worst console launch ever because I don't know what I'm doing. But I just feel like you can't go wrong with the games. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to kick off a new gen and you're not completely confident that the hardware and the selling points of that hardware are going to be enough, you cannot lose with the games. But that brings up the question of, like, so wait, are they going to be exclusive? Because then that screws me up too, because I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure they won't be. Right? Or will they? I'm not sure. I really don't. I wish I could say that I have some really concrete idea of the way Sony's going to go about rolling this out. But considering how many experiments they've done this generation so far, how many things that they've changed this generation so far and done differently, I don't have that type of confidence. I feel like I went into the PS5 generation 100% convinced every game you see announced for PS5 is going to be a PS5 exclusive, just to find out that the majority of them were actually cross-gen. And it's like, oh shit, I didn't see that at all. Is it going to be the opposite? Now I'm going to go into the PS6 generation saying all of these games are going to be cross-gen, and Sony's going to take the opposite approach and they're all PS6 exclusive. I mean, how funny would that be, right? It would be such a, like, whoa. Didn't expect that pivot. Didn't expect that 180. I would be wrong again. Maybe Sony will just do the opposite of whatever I think they're going to do. So I should will it into existence. You think this entire talk was a waste? I don't think it was. I mean, dude, this is like the one time we actually have the most justifiable reason to talk about the next gen. Most of the time it's rumors and leaks. And granted, the last couple PS6 leaks we got were really significant because the entire specs leaked out. But I think this was a worthwhile discussion. But yeah, I feel it too. I understand where you guys are coming from, where it's like, yeah, it's interesting to go over this stuff and it's interesting to cover it, but we are still in the thick of the PS5 gen. And I don't feel as though there's a rush. The only thing I feel as though there may be a rush for is is yes, seeing what some of these other studios are working on. And people thought we were going to get a showcase this September. We didn't. We got a state of play, and we got to see Wolverine. We got to see Soros. So we're seeing stuff. It's not like Sony's not providing games. They are. It's just there's so much mystery, I think, at this point. And maybe it's good to let the mystery build up, let the curiosity build up. But there's so much mystery around so many PlayStation studios right now. I guess we'll kind of see how it unfolds. Nice. Very cool. Did they post Ghost of Yotei sales? No, they have not. I think it was the number one seller in Japan, though. Sold like 100,000 units or something like that. I don't have the data actually like right in front of me, but it was something like that. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it says Ghost of Yotei was the number one best-selling game in Japan this week. It sold 120,196 physical units on launch of PS5. So that's only physical. So yeah, this game's doing very well in Japan. But in terms of like overall numbers, we still don't know. I don't know if we're going to get the numbers. And we don't know how well it did digitally in Japan either. Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to get actual raw sales data these days. Excuse me. It's getting more and more difficult. You were hoping that Mark Cerny would have hinted at the next handheld. Yeah, maybe still too soon for that. It took several days for Yotei to sell 1.5 million when Tsushima sold 2.5 to 3 million in its first few days. Where are you getting that data from, Wes? I haven't seen anything on that. Cerny held. Introducing the first ever Cerny held. Oh, that sounds weird. Alinea Analytics just released a report on Yotei in its first week sales. Yeah, I'm a little hesitant with these guys, though, at this point. I'm going to be honest. I'm a little bit hesitant with Alinea Analytics because it's like I said, man. They, hold on, I'm trying to find it. I can't find the report you're talking about. They're like VG charts. Well, the thing that really throws me off, somebody told me that Alinea Analytics claimed that Metal Gear Solid Delta sold like 500,000 units, and then the actual data was revealed, and it was literally double. It sold 1 million in the same time frame that they said it sold half that. So I'm like, and on top of that, they were the ones who were saying that that like Helldivers sold almost 1 million units on Xbox or something, and then I mean, we don't have the actual data, but it seems like it definitely didn't do 1 million. Like it seems like it fell pretty short of that. I don't know. But I still would be curious to see what the number is. Although I can't find the report though. Let's see. Ghost of Yotei sales data. Yeah, I can't find anything on it. Maybe they posted on Twitter. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's only on their Twitter. Alinea Analytics Ghost of Yote estimates 1.6 million sold to consumers, 2 million plus including retailers. That's almost $100 million in revenue. Yote made back its $60 million dev budget the day after launch. It's outselling Assassin's Creed Shadows by 1.5 times on PS5 so far. 77% share of digital copies. So I don't know. Like, it's just so difficult because it's like, what is this based on? I mean, this could be total, I don't know. It could be total guesswork, or it could be very accurate. I don't know. Well, here's what I'll say. Sony is going to be hosting their earnings report, I think, next month, November, the middle of November. If they're going to give sales data for Yote, that's probably where they'll reveal it to their shareholders. So I don't think unless they broke some kind of record. It seems like that's the only time. November 11th. Okay, thank you, Irfan. Yeah, it seems like the only time they ever give sales data immediately is if they break some kind of record, and they haven't done that. So we will see. Luna, Luna, you're gonna knock down my rack of games. What are you doing? Stop that. Stop that. Get out of there. God, what is wrong with this cat, bro? But guys, I think this is going to be maybe a good place to wrap up today's stream. This was the only topic I had to discuss with you, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stream today, but I'm glad this topic came up because it was able to give me something to discuss today. But I think I'm going to keep today's stream on the shorter side. Made all its money back in 24 hours. Can you guys see Luna? Oh, man. Yeah, we will see. You need my email? If you go to the About section of my channel, you should be able to find my email there. Yeah, Luna's being crazy. But guys, yeah, I think this is going to be a good place to wrap it up. I did put out a video earlier. You can go check that out where it kind of breaks down everything we talked here more concisely. But I want to thank everybody for tuning into today's stream. Thank you for hanging out with me, watching live. Also want to give a shout out to anybody who watches the content later on. Maybe you can't catch it live. I just appreciate any of the support you guys show. I want to give a shout out to anybody who dropped any support. If you dropped any member gifts, if you became a member, super chats, direct donations, we're completely fan funded. I can only do what I do here because you guys make it possible. All right. So thank you so much for that. And also a shout out to Devil Shooter, who does the timestamps for the stream. So if you guys see Devil Shooter in the comments, show him some love, give him some thanks. I know he appreciates it. He does a great job with the timestamps. So thank you for that. And yeah, when it comes to tomorrow and Saturday, I'm either going to be taking like the weekend off, as in like Friday and Saturday, or we might do a little something tomorrow. It really depends. I don't want to force it. But at the very least, guaranteed, we will be back here Sunday. So just have notifications turned on in case we do anything more over the next day or two. But yeah, it's been a crazy week. And again, there's some members lounges that we did. You can go check those out if you're a member looking for more content. And that's it. So guys, and yeah, Titus, bro, I don't know if you sent me that song yet, by the way, but whenever you do, if you send it before Sunday, we'll definitely play it on a Sunday stream. All right. All right, guys, that does it. Enjoy the rest of your day. I will catch you guys in the next one. Till then, take care, everyone. Oh, you did. Hold on, Titus, you did send it. Oh shit, all right. You know what? Not a big deal. It'll be better if I save it for Sunday anyway. We'll get more people in. At this point, everybody already left, so I'm sorry, man. I forgot about that. Remind me, Titus. Sunday, we'll play it. All right. We'll see how it competes. All right, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.